And a good day to you, Explorer Nation. Happy 2024. John Lynskey, your ambassador of alumni affairs, here with Season 5, Episode 9 of Looking Back with Lynskey. And it's a special one today because it's literally like looking in a mirror. My doppelganger, as he's been called, stunt double, other things. 30 years, a Columbus English teacher, 2 decades as the department leader for English, one of the great teachers in a tremendous department. One of those people you forget that he actually didn't go to Columbus. He's that much of a Columbus guy. So, my honor to welcome Mr. Keith Crossman. Thanks for being here, brother.
I don't know if I can reach through here and not hit a microphone.
There we go.
Always a pleasure, John. Thank you for having me. Finally,
Yes.
It's been a work.
All good things come to those who wait, so they say. Yeah, we seriously been talking about this for a while, and I'm excited to do it because, as you know, Keith, predominantly we feature alumni on this.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for everyone to understand that there are a lot of people here that do significant things that they just didn't happen to go to Columbus.
Sure.
And in the classroom, you're right at the top of the list. So I always like to start with, the journey and everything else. So, yeah, you did not go to Columbus. Where did you go to high school, Keith?
So I went to the Trojans of Hialeah, Miami Lakes there, over on the border. Yeah, I was one of the few gringos over there in Hialeah. Actually, I graduated in '88, which was the year after Sandy Valdez. Don't know if you know that. She went to my
There's
school.
a fun fact.
Yeah.
Did you two know each other in high school?
So casually, I played soccer, and
yeah.
she was affiliated with the soccer team, so we kind of knew each other casually. But yeah, when she started working here, I had a connection. But other than the connection that I have at Columbus, like this is my school. I don't think I've stepped foot on that campus in 30, 40 years, but this is home. Yeah.
When did you decide you wanted to be a teacher? Some people knew, right away. Other people fell into it. What was your particular journey to education, Keith?
So, I would say I fell in love with English as a subject early on.
Okay.
Middle school. And Mr. Krenz at Miami Lakes Middle, back in 8th grade, teaching Shakespeare. But as far as being a teacher, I don't know. I think, when I went to college, like a lot of people, I was unsure of what I wanted to graduate or study. Business was the undeclared major. Eventually it turned to law.
Okay.
But I think what happened is I realized that I'd always been involved in working with kids. One of my favorite jobs in the college summers where I had off coming down from FSU was being a lifeguard at a camp and being a camp counselor for young kids. And I became an RA at a dormitory up at Florida State. And I was always working with people, and I always kind of found myself naturally gravitating towards kind of like a little bit of a leadership role. And I realized that, with my Irish gift of gab and some diplomatic skills, that I was able to work with people easily. It came easily to me, and I didn't realize it didn't come easy for a lot of people. So with my love of English, and my disillusionment with law school hit at the same time, another option came to me, which was, I really would be happier working with people, and in particular with kids. And so it just kind of fell in my lap. Literally, this was my first legit career, out of college. So I never really tried anything else, but at this point, I have no regrets.
So did you take education courses in Tallahassee?
So I did, yeah.
Okay.
I took a couple pre-law classes. I was actually studying linguistics and law, and I thought that, I had a real passion for the spoken word, for rhetoric. Argumentation was my forte. But someone said, as a backup, you might want to consider taking some of those education classes just as a possibility. And when I did they have an internship, or I said, I can see myself doing this, So I did take the education courses needed. So I actually graduated I had a minor in science. I graduated with English Lit, and I had the education courses to allow me to teach and get the certificate.
That's an unusual combination, though, because generally you're either a math science person or, you're a language guy, a fine arts person. You have a nice balance, which actually paid off with your chance to get in the door here at Columbus. Again, everybody gets hired in a very different way. How did you get hired here?
Yeah, so the story is right out of, I was working at TGI Fridays, which no longer exists, over
Which one?
by the International Mall.
Yeah,
over
okay.
there, right? Bartending and waiting tables. And I had a mutual friend of the family here, Gary McCarthy, junior counselor.
Sure.
And he had told me there was an opening. And I hadn't yet gone through, or I got the confidence yet to wean myself away from Miami. And so I hadn't taken any real interviews seriously, but I said, okay, it's in the backyard. Let's check this out. So I actually was hired by, I remember the committee was Fred Panzer. The brother was Brother Ray. Kevin Conway was here as the assistant principal at the time. Pat Call was in that room. And that might be it. And well, the long story short on that is the position that was available for English, there were several people competing for that, but there was a window of opportunity for science. And the way that came about is Terry Shomat, who was at the time, her child Danny was in utero. And that's how I know how long I've been teaching at Columbus. I just have to once in a while ask, how old is Danny Shomat? Yeah. He got me the job here, actually. So I had an unborn child help me out with my job application. So Terry, being the legend that she is, the Hall of Famer, she should be the Hall of Famer, she set up everything for me. And so it was plug and play. I was learning the material in the chemistry book probably the day or two before the kids were. And I don't tell you this now, but in total confianza now, I'll say that chemistry was the one class I really was horrible at in science. Anybody who went to HML with me probably could attest to that. I was more of a bio, physics, astronomy guy, and geology, but chemistry I struggled with. But apparently they survived and they kept me. And then I taught English later that year.
When the door opens, you step through it and you just say, oh, sure, I can do that.
Absolutely.
Sure, I can do that. What did you know about Columbus before you interviewed?
Honestly, about zero.
Okay.
I had a friend who played soccer here in 8th, 9th grade. He was bused from Hialeah, and I just know he went down south somewhere.
Okay.
Columbus was totally off my radar. I think HML might have played him once or twice. In soccer, we played him once.
And played him in football a little bit.
In football, once or twice, and that's about it. Really nothing.
So what was your first impression of this place?
So, I was born, raised Irish Catholic, so, there was nothing other than, hey, it's a Catholic school. The all-boys thing was a little different, but I also thought as a really young guy, it was a safe place to start teaching. I was going to be in an environment that was kind of new. I'm a North Dade kind of guy, but at the time, the school was so different from now. Mm-hmm. I could just simply say, hey, it was just a private school, a Catholic school. Now it's just a behemoth and a juggernaut and everything. I can't believe I'm part of this institution, the way it's grown and how I've been able to grow with it. But I came here knowing nothing, probably about education or Columbus or even about myself. And I've been on a journey for the last 30 years where I don't probably recognize that guy or even in some ways that school.
Well, it was a different lifetime.
Yeah.
A totally different lifetime. Yes, a completely different place. How long do you think it took you, if you can remember, to adjust to the Columbus way? The way the boys were back then is completely different than the way they are today. Yeah. And when you're new and you're particularly taking over for someone who's established, man, that's not easy.
No. I would liken my experience. Well, let me give you my first English class, because that's where it starts making sense. I had Andrew Harriman as one of my first students.
Yeah.
So look at the luck of that, right? I had some great guys, Joaquin Gonzalez, right? Eventual NFL, Hall of Famer. I had some guys in a class that when I look back on it now, you say, well, how did you do it? I was 23. Mm-hmm. These guys were 16 going on 23, in terms of the worldliness, of what they've experienced and what they know.
Yeah.
I didn't see myself as very different from these guys. So to be fair, we called them the Phase 2 back in the day, later rebranded as our Montagna.
Yeah, they're not yet smart.
Our guys that not yet need to learn so good at the Zoolander school. They were good kids. They were like me. They weren't necessarily motivated, or school wasn't a priority. That was my high school experience. Again, the good news about a show like this is I can share with you, which a lot of people might be surprised, teaching 5 APs, being involved in the Moss Scholars. I was not a good high school student. I was not. I was a 2.5ers out there. That was me. I didn't take it
You were
seriously.
incredibly average.
I was incredibly average, and I embraced that. A great time in high school.
Yeah.
And so I knew where these kids were coming from, and I knew their potential because I don't think I really matured, at least academically, until well into college. And so I understood that there was hope. I saw these guys, and we would chat about sports and about music, and I think the rapport was instant with a lot of these kids, and so I think it was easier than I expected. Looking back on it, it was crazy because I just said yes and jumped in. But
Yeah.
I was just being a young kid. I think that connection was immediate.
You had a point a moment ago that those kids, while they might not be book smart, they're very, very astute.
Absolutely.
And they pick up instantly on sincerity. And they're willing to cut you slack if you may not know the material, but you're doing your best and you're trying and you're sincere. And I think if you come into this place and you're sincere, you've got a chance. But remember,
humility goes a long way, definitely.
It does. And there was no Lavala program, no beginning teacher. Man, you were like the little turtles trying to get to the ocean, and not everybody's going to make it, man.
Yeah.
Where did a couple questions. Were you a good English student in high school, as in the subject?
So, yes, I was a good
Okay.
reader, and I was a good writer.
Okay.
I just was not a good student, if we can make that distinction.
I got you. No, I understand
Homework
that
was
completely.
always optional, and I took the wrong option every time.
Why English? What do you enjoy about the subject of English?
So that's a podcast in itself. Let me bring it back to you, because I think as a phenomenal teacher yourself, you understand the value of the story. I think you, as a historian and a student of history, an academic, you understand that we have in history, you have points, right? You've got like stars in a constellation, and your job is to make sense of it for the kids, right? So you're drawing, oh, that's the Big Dipper. Like, otherwise they're just the day of infamy, right? I can memorize a date, right? The term in literature is called emplotment, right? Where we kind of we have to put a narrative around things to make sense of anything. And to me, things, and I think to most kids, everything makes sense when it's put into the story form, a narrative. And if you put it into a narrative, the story of Vietnam, the kids can't help but pay attention, right? Their interest is garnered. So I think for me, stories I think they're just universally liked by everybody. I think there's a point where we just stop engaging in them, and maybe so we just don't read as much or something. But for me, I've always loved stories. Secondly, the fascination with language. I have a real fascination with linguistics and how language operates, and how semiotics, right, symbols, and how symbols operate and how powerful they are. But I also love rhetoric. I loved a good argument. I mean, a legit argument, a discussion so we can kind of flesh out all angles of things and see things from all sides. So that's why, law and linguistics and I think literature all converged for me. I hated grammar, so I'll say that. But I realized one thing very early on is that, language is power. And in your ability to have access to it and to master it, to control it is literally to control reality. You can influence others for better or for worse. You can do so much with understanding how language functions. And so it was the story and the power behind language itself, I think, that really made me fascinated with the English world.
Good answer, bro. British lit or American lit?
American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Now, I have said this. I forget who I was talking to the other day about this. I've always believed that math teachers, science teachers, they really earn their money, because it's how Webb makes math exciting. I have no idea.
Clue.
That stuff is hard, man. We have a foot up in that you're telling stories, as you just said, about people and events. And if you can't make that exciting, you shouldn't be teaching.
Absolutely. I agree with you, 100%.
But that being said, I don't have any idea how you guys could make British lit exciting. I used to watch Bob Linfors do it, and it was an art form, man,
absolutely.
because that stuff.
And Fred Panzer.
Oh, well,
master at it.
Fred is the all-time master. How do you take something that difficult and break it down? Because Beowulf, it's not a comic book.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Beowulf is a senior thing, and I've dodged that for some time now. But Hamlet's no different in
Sure.
some ways. So for me, I think what it comes down to is you always have to make the connection back to the kid, right? So that's always, to me, what great teaching is. They don't need us. They got ChatGPT. They, online, they can find anything they want. But the human connection is really what we're here for, right? How do I take that kid and have him understand 450 years ago, this guy in Stratford-upon-Avon who wrote this guy in Denmark? I think it stems from understanding the commonality, for example, for me, for language. So if I see language, I see the word choices that kids use today. If I see recurring images, right? It could be like a metaphor or a symbol. And I tell them, look, that what you're watching right there is the same thing that you're watching in your favorite DC or Marvel Comics movie. Like, that's the same argument. That's the same character. When you can bridge 450 years by bringing an analogy to them that's meaningful, I think you've got them for a moment. And now with that moment, it's all about what you do with that. And so for me, I've never been able to or get excited about teaching the content because they can find that instantly. They can go online, Spark Notes, and hey. To me, the value is, what does this do for me? How does this make me think deeper about my life? So to me, it was always about the philosophy behind what the bard was writing. So if I'm going to do some boring lit, I'm going to make sure that the philosophy is not, and then that they can make some connections, things that they can apply in real time, to their lives. That's it. Other than that, you do the song, the dance, a stupid Soulja Boy, YouTube video,
Speaking a day,
make some jokes. That's about it.
Day of infamy. Yes.
Oh yeah.
That
We don't
was
have to go
awesome.
there. Too soon.
American Lit. As you know, one thing I didn't get to do, I didn't get to be an English teacher. Really wanted to do that. That's fine. Things work out. Who are your favorite writers? American writers.
So throwing it back at you, right now we're doing Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carry. So I've always wanted to be a history teacher.
There you go.
It's like looking in a mirror again here. Right?
Again.
So, I hate the favorite question, but I'm going to answer it because I'm here.
Pick a few.
Yeah. So first of all, I love satire. So, we got to go with Mark Twain. I just think in terms of his essays in particular, not even his larger works. Although my son is partly named after Huck Finn.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually, I love Kurt Vonnegut. Another fascinating writer. I do like, now at this point in my life, I like writers that push the envelope. I like writers that are highly experimental. I had my James Joyce period, who's not an American writer, but those modernist writers. And I think now it's moved into guys like Richard Powers and stuff when I'm reading, contemporary literature. But I would say, I think growing up, my original master's thesis actually was written on Flannery O'Connor.
Oh.
I think she's a fascinating Southern Gothic writer.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I think I'm boring to tears right now, 90% of your audience, but I'm not going to geek out on that right now.
I don't care about them right now. No, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
Mad woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Southern mad woman.
And I love mad people. So.
You mentioned Tim O'Brien, and that's something we shared because, all those years of teaching the Vietnam class, Tim O'Brien captured Vietnam as well as anybody I ever read. And when you read some of his vignettes, the guy could bring the horrors of war alive. And that's what a great writer does. He creates visualization.
And communicates a truth. I think communicates something that people can somehow resonate with, even if, and this is a big part of the book itself, is that even if it's not true, that the feeling, the empathy, which I think is a huge component of literature in terms of why I think it's important for us and our kids, is the power to empathize with people you're never going to meet and experiences you're never going to have, because I can't go back in time and live in Vietnam in 1968. But if you can put me there emotionally, man, that's a power. And he's got the gift for that, obviously.
And that's the thing. You're 18 years old. Well, it's 2024. Well, they were 18 too. It was just 1968. And so this is you doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it.
It's a time jump. You just got to jump right to now, but have them be there. And literature is a time machine. It can do that.
So you and I have been around this place for a long time, and we go back to chalk and blackboards and textbooks and everything else. And obviously, things have changed greatly, and there are benefits and there are detriments with change.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what is becoming like a Florida panther, rarely seen and disappearing rapidly. Kids that actually read books. How do you, as an English teacher, head of the English department, deal with the facts that books to this generation are passé at best?
Yeah, I'd love to say I have an answer or a solution for that, and I don't. Obviously, you know, I've got sticks and carrots, right, to kind of motivate our guys. But in terms of like inculcating the love of reading, I think it starts with what all subjects should start with. You have to foster academic curiosity. If they're not curious, if you can't make them curious about it, no one's gonna waste their time exploring. There's too much TikTok scrolling that I've got to get through. I got to finish the Netflix, you know, by the weekend. So how do I got to be interested. I got to be interested.
To your point, they want instant gratification yesterday.
Yeah.
How do you get them to read, even begin to comprehend or want to read a 400-page book?
Yeah. To be fair, I've noted I've cut down. I'm not with the days of. I'm thinking back now to honors sophomore English with the great brother Eugene, who used to assign 20 novels. Yes. I don't know if any guys remember back in the 90s. You know, what I've realized is that you can do more with less. And so I don't assign even close to the number or the amount of literature that I used to assign. I go essays. I do a lot more. We'll do commercials. Today we're looking at clips from Spaceballs to talk about some postmodern concepts of metafiction. I figure that you have to fight the battle on the terms that are set by the zeitgeist, right? We are in a world where attention is a commodity. I got to get your attention, and if I'm not in and out in 5 seconds, you're fast forwarding my advertisement. So we're going to do Super Bowl commercials for analysis next week. Look, if you can't get interested in picking your own funny commercial, there's no hope for you at this point. So, you know, my research class for AP seminar, they pick their own research topics. So
no, I'm cool. That's fine as long as they do it.
The kids have to have you know, some kind of investment. You know? And so I think if I give them as much of that as possible, and I give it as little as possible to consume, they choose what to consume. You don't have to tell someone to eat too much at the all-you-can-eat buffet if they like the food. So I let them have choice. I try to, you know, to become a catalyst for their curiosity, but I don't assign nearly as much just here's an overwhelming amount of material to read. I can't. And so those days are gone to me. There's a few kids that I know that they're reading on their own and they're doing their things, and that's fantastic. But I think the idea of signing, you know, the Count of Monte Cristo's unedited, unabridged edition they're well past gone.
Reading, writing, and listen, I get it. It's the world we live in, and you can't live in the past, as we just discussed. However, that being said, their ability, I think it's fair to say, to write properly with good grammar and punctuation, although you don't like it, text language is killing us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Literally, technology is killing the ability for them to write in complete, substantial sentences. And how, again, you're in the classroom. How do you deal with that?
So, you know, there's a lot of arguments on all sides of this. You know, why do we need to do basic math if we have a 4-function calculator? Like, I get the argument of why, if I've got Grammarly or ChatGPT, why do I need to learn how to write? That might become an obsolete skill. And then it frees up our cognitive functions for something else, right? And I understand that argument, but at the same time, freeing it up for what? For more time scrolling on TikTok? So to me, I ask myself, and this is always my question as an educator, what am I teaching? Am I teaching writing? Because obviously writing and reading are very closely linked. If you don't read, you probably don't write well.
Correct.
But the other problem is, why am I teaching the writing? And to me, it's always about, I want my guys to be thinkers. I want them to be critical thinkers. Mm-hmm. So the question to me isn't so much, you know, what do we do about writing other than to satisfy the College Board for my AP exams? They need to write their essays. My bigger question is, are you thinking? So to me, writing, while it is a form I do struggle with the kids, a lot of them are still decent writers, believe it or not. What I'm more interested in is oral defenses at this point. Talk me through this. Like, your paper is your paper, but I just want to know the thinking process that goes on behind this. And I want to ask questions that are thinking questions. They don't have answers. They're not closed-ended answers. They're open-ended. Because everything is accessible online with tech.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're writing something, and let's say arguably you're not even really reading it, what's the end game? I'm going to grade it with ChatGPT. Like, what are we doing here? So I want to remember the core of education is that I want my guys to grow up in a world and not just be functional, like a robot who can add, subtract, and have ChatGPT think for them. But I want them to think. I want them to think about the deep questions.
Writing is a passion. Writing comes with substance. Yeah, you're right. They can crank it out, AI, all of that stuff. But to me, the joy, and I know you feel this way, of working with words, and creating something with words. There's so many different ways to say the same thing that I was blessed to have great English teachers at this place. The Mike Deans, the Fred Panzers, those guys, they instilled a love of words that I have to this day. And it saddens me a little bit, Keith, to see that the kids just don't have that same kind of thing. It's a different world, I get it.
Yeah.
But I just thinking that reading and writing makes you a more well-rounded person.
Well, to me, it's also more of a guardrail for your life. It's not just that they can't do it. I mean, at the end of the day, if someone can't write or can't do math or can't do science, it's not the end of their existence. But I think there's something lost in their experience of life. And more importantly, it puts them at a bit of danger. If you don't understand some basic science about lightning and where you're standing in the middle of a field, or, and more to the point, if you don't understand the power of the language that's being used every day for your attention, for your money, for your political, leaning. A single word, an entire ideology can be, ushered in or shut down based on that choice of language. And if you're not aware that sometimes we're just being manipulated, whether it's by advertisers or politicians or whoever, that's scary to me. We need to, at least understand that if I agree that I'm going to purchase that the commercial had a role in that. It's not just like it's magic. Like, there's something psychologically, something culturally, socially that's going on. So they don't have to be good writers, I think, and necessarily use language well, but at least to understand when it's maybe weaponized against them. And I think that's an important defense against this hyper-commercial and politicized world that we live in.
Yeah, very interesting response. Mentioned the name a minute ago. Talk about your relationship experiences working with Fred Panzer.
So Fred is the GOAT. I mean, at least from my generation. I know we've had, the Sheehan's before, and I know we've had the brother Eugene's before, but he was my mentor. And we had a real affinity for, not just literature, although he's more of a brick guy than me, but we had Bushmills and Jameson in common too, so that helped. But Fred, he parsed his words carefully. I know when I was in instruction mode with him, never his student, like I said, never attended Columbus, but I knew that, he was thoughtful and pensive when he spoke, because I think we realized really quickly that, I might not be the heir apparent, but I was somebody who, was headed in that direction. I idolized and kind of like wanted to emulate in some ways, Fred Panzer. So working with him, I mean, he was a coworker of mine, and it was really weird being his department chair for a few years. I must admit that. But I got to say that overall, he gave me simultaneously, motivation to aspire to be better, but also kept me grounded in the sense where I wasn't too harsh on myself. He reminded me who these kids are and where the boys are. He's one of the few guys that's ever taught, like he taught the phase 2 and the phase 5, like back to back. I still don't know anybody who can swing.
That's a swing, bro.
Absolutely. And so I think he, more than anyone, and successfully at both of those, was able to kind of communicate, listen, I've seen it, I've been there, and I know what you're dealing with. So don't be too hard on yourself, but step it up. He was really, I think, instrumental in formulating a lot of who I am today. I thank him.
Fred and brother Eugene had the ability to insult you that it took you about 5 minutes to realize what they had just said
There's
to you.
kids that are still trying to figure out Panzer jokes from the late 80s. Yeah.
Talk about your department, because I believe, and I was a member of it for forever, the history department and the English department have always been cornerstones here. We had great teachers, and you've got some characters in your department, and they're longtime characters.
Yeah, and we just had a recent split, so I'm kind of sad. We have the communications methodology department, which the great Christina Insua is now heading. Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody out, man, but I mean, you've got, the old school guys. I got my Adam Schollers, who've been around. And then guys that kind of came in roughly around the same time as mine, which I now realize I'm one of the old schoolers, the Cody Morrisseys, the Juan Moscosos, Andy Chacon. Oh my God, I'm going to leave the people out from that era right there. But you get Dave Ulloa's in here, the newer crew, and you remember that interview, right?
Bro. Greatest single interview
ever.
Of all time.
We can't even
begin
it's like
to
Fight
talk
Club.
about that.
We can't go there.
That interview didn't happen.
Absolutely.
No,
hey, listen, and other guys that were in and left the department, I've got people who came. Christy's still one of my greatest hires. I brag about her all the time. And, Jeanette Gonzalez-Ross. I got that group, the Amy Malafrays and all them. But as far as the character, like Paul Coomer was my first hire. You know that?
That's a great hire.
Yeah, great hire. Oh, no, absolutely.
That's a great hire. That was your first hire?
My first. Oh, I had a run there for a while.
If you look at who, Rick has come back.
Rick, oh gosh, yes. Don't forget people. You make me feel bad, John. Okay, so Rick.
Rick coming back was huge, because Bob Linfor's leaving, that's a big gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I've always...
Well, everybody was trying to fill Fred Panzer. Remember, that's all Fred Panzer's class. And how do you do that? You don't do that. Bob got the first run. And
great point. You don't try to be somebody else. You can't be that person. You've got to be yourself. And, you've got to be very proud of your department.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and this comes up all the time. There is a resemblance that we share. And the number of times that, particularly when I became dean, there's great stories, and we laugh about this. It's back to school night. I'm standing in the hallway. I don't have anything to do. I'm just standing around looking smart, and some parent would come up to me and just start going on and Mr. Crossman, my son loves you. You're the best teacher he's ever had. Yada yada. And I stopped trying to. I finally had to stand.
Same story over here. Same story. My difference is, kids automatically start putting their tie up. You know what I mean? Bathroom vapes were going. No, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, I walked through and I was like a minor dean of discipline. Yeah, it was they had no idea who I was.
I had a standard answer. He's a great kid. You must be very proud.
Guys from class of '78 are coming up to me. A couple drinks in, and like I'm not the man you think I am. Yeah.
Oh man. As you look back. The school has grown. Obviously, we're well aware of that. What changes do you think have been the most positive here at Columbus?
Wow. So the way I look at everything in life is that everything is a positive and a negative. So I'm looking at the brighter side. I mean, we have grown, which comes with its own issues, least of which is parking and scheduling and all that. And I think we've grown, we've become like this really diverse school that has so many opportunities for so many kids. Like that's, the day of the same kids all learning the same thing and like this kind of automaton like approach to education that I'm not saying I saw that when I walked in, but it was a much smaller village and the desks were all aligned the same way. You didn't have rooms like this. We had to build them in the back of the old library, if you remember, with Mr. Canella. But the idea that we had spaces that were uniquely created for kids who had unique talents and skill sets, like that's phenomenal. We have that everywhere, whether it's engineering downstairs with the Sanchez Engineering Building or, this building which started the Moss Building.
Yeah.
We specialized these places. I mean, I'm just over here listening to the concert band jam out here with Cooper. Like, it's phenomenal. We didn't have this stuff. So that's been a huge positive, I think.
Couldn't agree more. The diversity of this place now. Yeah. I mean, we have 80 clubs, the drama department. Drama at this place was always rather limited. Now it's a strength. This studio.
Award-winning,
the band, robotics, there's a place for every type of kid in the world at this school now, and it was not the case when you first started.
Yeah.
Certainly not when I went to school here.
No.
I'm very proud of the diversity of this place now, and with success comes challenges.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants to, emulate you, and
Well, it says the emulating. It's a little bit of the argument for the Roman Empire. Like as we expand, it's hard to maintain greatness. I mean, when you're like 13, 14 and 0, like you're just waiting for the L.
Yes.
We're on a streak. We're on a run right now.
We are as well balanced as we've ever been.
Yeah.
I think we're getting more credit for our academic success. That's always been
Absolutely.
overlooked. We've always been very good academically, and people never realized it. But we're equal footing now, academics and athletics, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Now, what the work that I'll go ahead and throw Sylvie and her crew, but going back to Sanchez, going back to just dropping names right here, help me out. Founding of the Moss program.
Oh,
Delilah. Wow. Sorry. My bad. PETA. Delilah. I mean, when we started this back then, that was actually, I'm thinking of Alina Sanchez because she was also wanting this for so long, if you remember.
Yeah, and they're
opportunity.
sisters anyway.
Yeah,
so.
For them to compete. And what they've done and what Sylvie has built on and her guys and gals, I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, we compete with the best of the best academically now. And our AP program is phenomenal. The opportunities they're given, the acceptance rates, it's pretty insane. It was not also the reputation of the Columdum term that was potentially bandied about back there a while ago. That's long gone.
Yeah, we'll ask that institution over there how many Silver Knights they've won lately.
Yep, National Merit
Never mind state championships. As a department leader, you work very closely with our academic leadership and with the administration. And you've been a department leader for a really long time now. Describe what that role is like.
Wow. So since I feel like it's a game of Survivor, right? I'm one of the final few that's been around that long, and it's worn its welcome at some point here. We need some fresh ideas. But I think one of the things that probably attests to the longevity, and this is just for me personally, is that I think in life, when you're in a leadership position, you have to be diplomatic. There's things that you probably feel strongly about or things that you know are good or need to happen, but you're also realistic in understanding how mechanisms work and the systems and ecosystems that things are set in. And so, you don't fight for the world that you want, you fight within the world you're in. And so I think that I've been able to push for things that I think are essential. Whether we have honor codes or, the use of certain technologies that we're going to need that I think are going to better Columbus as a whole, while meanwhile not stepping on toes and understanding, the limits to which, you can operate. And that we're all humans and we're part of a Marist family. And at the end of the day, you're my coworkers, but you're my friends and you're my family. So there's no, muscling about of agendas. I think it comes with honest conversations. I think when you're having a conversation, when I talk with Dave Pugh or I talk with Juan or Tom or Pedro or Terry, they're friends first, and there is business there. But at the end of the day, we understand that we all go home to our families and we have our jobs. So it's a balance between understanding that things need to get done, but understanding that we all have sometimes competing interests and we have to balance that. And it's a challenge, but I think diplomacy is where it's at in terms of surviving.
Well, being Irish, there's that old, Irish diplomacy,
Yeah,
the ability to tell people to go to hell so they look forward to the trip.
Language matters,
yeah.
too. Yes.
Language matters.
And, the choice of words are everything. Absolutely. Yeah.
The term Marist gets bandied about a lot at this place. And when, back in the day, we'd heard of Marshall and Champagne, but Marist, charism, all that stuff, it was, I guess, just sort of understood. Now it's at the forefront of who we are. So you didn't go to school here, didn't know anything about the place, yada, yada, yada. Here we are, 3 decades later. What does being Marist mean to you?
So one of the things that I think it does resonate with me was early on, like my philosophy oftentimes was just to say yes, right? Just the idea of, like you said, when I took this job here, I jumped in teaching chemistry, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I've jumped into everything. When you know, Brother Pat offered me this, I was doing student activities at the time, which I said yes to at that point. Didn't know what the hell I was getting into, right? And then I got into this. So I've like this habit of saying yes. That whole, you know, marriage, you know, the idea of married, you know, just of saying yes. I mean, I didn't realize it then, but I mean, that's part of like my philosophy in life. The love of work, you know, to me, well, there's a trick to this, which is I don't think I work here. I think I come here.
Let me ask you a question. Do you say I'm going to work or I'm going to school?
School.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to explain that to other people sometimes. My wife's a teacher, so she gets it too. You know, but for me, I don't. My love of work is just my love of Columbus, my love of the kids, my love of my subject matter, my love of my coworkers. So the love of work, which I think is one of our pillars, I'm supposed to say. I guess I do, but I just love coming here. So for me, you know, the idea, I'm very much an egalitarian, you know, the idea of loving everybody and treating them equally, at least I try my best at that. So I think there's a lot of elements of it before I even knew it, you know, before I went to like sharing our call or anything or had any of the literature that tells me, oh, that's Marist. Oh, okay. That's what I've been doing, or that's kind of who I am.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I get that. You know, you and William ran SAC. You guys made it fun.
Yeah.
You guys were creative. You know, sometimes dangerous.
Yeah, well, remember, the creativity is only as good and the danger is only as good as the guys that are working with you. So we have some names I could throw at you. One that's probably sitting in this this booth over here. Yeah, so I actually was going to coach with Greg Welch. I was looking at coaching freshman soccer, and when Lou Savino was here, and then you know he passed, and it gave me another opportunity to do something, and then student activities kind of fell into my lap. I said, let's go, and I had Bobby Condi there first. She was the first generation. I had a short stint with Greg Lightfoot.
Yes, Mr. Lightfoot, yes.
But then I had the fantastic and phenomenally brilliant optometrist and math teacher, Mr. William Yu. Yeah, so we were a great team. He's OCD. I feel like it's like an Omar and Christie kind of pairing at CCNN.
Yeah, yin and yang. Yeah.
Like I went just all over the place and I was energy and excited, and then Will just kept it in line. And so he told me what we could and couldn't do and balanced the checkbooks. And we, as you should know, we took over that in about 96. John Coryell was my first president, the great John Coryell.
You started at a very high level, my friend.
Absolutely. Oh, and I had a couple of Harvard grads to begin with, and then we had Adrian Alfonso, board president. But anyway, no, we had some great guys.
You did.
And that class of '98 is definitely one of the classics there, because Beach Bash came out of that year.
Adrian and Omar. Yeah. Look at them now.
Rick Pellegrin. There was a Panzer involved in there, some Mom Points. There's a few. Yeah,
no, those were golden years that, they were different. And we had fun. And I'll tell you, this has been fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've enjoyed this. It's been well worth the wait. So, Mr. Lynskey, thank you so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure.
Have really looked forward to this. You know, and I'd love to do a part 2.
Absolutely, anytime. It only takes 2 years for it to happen again, but I'm on board when it happens.
Explore Nation, it has been a real pleasure to sit down with Keith Crossman, and I learned a lot today. You know, you work with people for forever, but there's always the little stories you do not know, and it ties us together even stronger. And today was one of those days. So I appreciate it, bro. I know you're a busy man. You got kids to teach and, you know, books to maybe read or whatever.
Or sign at least.
Yeah. But anyway, great way to kick off 2024. Explore Nation, we've got some great guests coming up. So until then, buenos tiempos and adelante. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.